For many parents, sending their children to daycare comes with that their child will be loved, protected, and nurtured cannot be there themselves. However, reality is that cases of child abuse, leading to fatal outcomes, still exist, involving individuals trusted as caregivers. She forever in 3, the agonizing words of the victim's mother. In March 2018, Jason Wesche dropped off his 3-year-old daughter, Hannah, at her babysitter, part of their routine for the past 8 months, given that they lived in the neighborhood. Jason would drive past there on his way to work and pick Hannah up at the end of the day. However, just minutes after leaving, Jason received a panicked call from the babysitter, informing him that Hannah had fallen and was responsive. Jason couldn't comprehend what he was hearing. How could the healthy little girl he had seen just moments ago suddenly collapse? It turned out that was not going to be an easy question to answer. Hannah Wesche entered the world on January 11, 2015, while her parents, Jason Wesche and Adrienne Lam, faced struggles from the start. Jason took on the role of a single father as Adrienne battled addiction, ultimately being arrested for selling and using heroin. Unfortunately, Hannah bore the consequences of her mother's addiction, being born addicted to heroin herself. In addition, Hannah also has 2 older sisters, Rachel and Caitlin. The family of 4 always appreciates the simple pleasures of life. Despite this tumultuous beginning, Hannah's resilient spirit shone through. She grew into a bright young zest for life. She adored spending time with her dad. Their bond in the simple joys they shared, like munching on cereal together and watching TV shows side by side. Jason's love for his daughter remained unwavering, even in the face of adversity. When Hannah was about 2 years old, Jason and she relocated to a new residence on Shank Road in Hamilton, OH. Jason found a job at a nearby construction company, so the move was a practical decision. With Jason with work during the day, he needed reliable childcare for Hannah. Lindsay appeared to be just the kind of babysitter you would want to take care of kids, a petite mother of 2 standing, residing 50 meters in Shank Road from Jason and Hannah's home. She lived with her longtime partner, Timothy Smith, and their 2 daughters. She held an associate degree in preschool education and supplemented her income by babysitting. In addition, Lindsay worked as a bookkeeper for. Lindsay began looking after Hannah in 2017, from 8 to 12-hour days in week. Jason was a single, juggling work, childcare, and household expenses, so he faced financial constraints. However, he still paid her $30 daily. Jason was unaware that Lindsay had been going through some difficult personal issues prior. She had suffered a miscarriage, and the relationship her and her husband had some problems. Lindsay found herself stretched thin while juggling the responsibilities of work and caring for her 3 young children, among whom was Hannah. It's not difficult to imagine that, given this delicate balancing chess during one visit, prompting questions. He told Jason the babysitter did it, but Lindsay explained Hannah had taken a tumble. At the time, this explanation seemed plausible enough. Hannah was full of energy, so she could be prone to occasional falls. Moreover, affection for Lindsay was apparent to all, including Jason, who observed she bounded up to Lindsay each day, eager for the next day. As the morning of March 8, 2018 dawned, Jason followed his familiar routine of preparing to drop Hannah off with Lindsay before heading to work. Hannah was usually keen to sit in the front seat and play co-driver with her father, but that day she asked to lie down in the back seat. It was a small change, but one that struck Jason as out of the ordinary. Little did he know, this would be a precursor to the events that would unfold that day. Shortly after dropping Hannah in Lindsay's house at around 7:00 a.m., Jason had only traveled a few minutes down the road when his phone rang, and Lindsay's frantic voice filled the air. She urgently told him to return to her house immediately. She said that Hannah had suddenly lost consciousness. Jason made a swift U-turn, reassuring Lindsay that he would arrive as quickly as possible, instructing her to dial 911 for emergency assistance. Lindsay told the police yesterday that Hannah wasn't feeling well. Right when Hannah's dad brought her here, she suddenly passed out. When Jason arrived, he was still on the phone, trying to wake Hannah up. Hannah was lying on the living room couch. She was still responsive, her eyes open but unfocused, unable to settle on anything in the room. She was loaded into the waiting ambulance and rushed to Fort Hamilton Hospital, where an emergency team stood ready. They were told the devastating news with her family, and loved ones gathered around her bed. Hannah's injuries raised immediate concerns among the healthcare professionals. It was clear to them that these were not the result of a simple accident, as Lindsay and Jason's words. Lindsay was brought to the police station for questioning. Faced tense questioning, she vehemently denied any involvement in causing Hannah's injury, also suggesting that the bruises Hannah had previously displayed were inflicted by Jason. Lindsay maintained that when Hannah was taken in her house, she had a donut before her sudden collapse. This presented a significant challenge for the investigators. They had disseminated an inaccurate composite sketch of Vect through the media and to patrol officers, leading everyone to search for an entirely different individual. During the latter part of the interrogation, Lindsay disclosed to detectives on March 7th, Hannah had suffered a fall, hitting her head on the hard concrete flooring. The day prior, March 6th, Hannah had experienced another, this time falling off a toy train set and hitting her head as a result. However, Lindsay was released following the interrogation due to insufficient evidence her to Hannah's injuries, with further investigative work was needed. And summoned by the detectives, this time she was confronted with photographic evidence detailing the extensive bruising found on Hannah's body. Pressed for an explanation, Lindsay offered a new testimony. She recounted how, March 8th, when Hannah was dropped off, the young girl had stumbled and fallen at the way of her home, striking her head on a step. Lindsay claimed that Hannah had appeared relatively unaffected after the fall. Lindsay continued that Hannah got up, asked her for a donut, and then collapsed. Despite extracting additional details from Lindsay, the detectives remained unconvinced that they had uncovered the complete truth. The severity of Hannah's injuries doesn't seem to be adequately explained by climbing the concrete steps. Saying that she had been under a When pressed further on this discrepancy, Lindsay altered her story once more. This time, she claimed that she had been carrying Hannah and they fell. She had inadvertently fallen on top of the little girl, causing Hannah's head to collide with the metal edge of the concrete step. Still, this didn't explain the bruising, so the detectives asked again. Hannah began crying and demanding her father, so she picked her up and shook her vigorously until she stopped crying, accidentally slipping and causing Hannah to drown. Lindsay admitted to hitting and punching Hannah several times prior to March 8th. She spoke to detectives about her own issues, such as miscarriage and relationship troubles, saying that she had been under a lot of stress. When Hannah grabbed a bottle of tomato sauce and sprayed it into the toilet, Lindsay said she lost her temper. Lindsay Parton was swiftly taken into custody and formally charged with assault and child endangerment following the investigation. With a search warrant in hand, a thumbed through Lindsay's devices, finding some intriguing findings. Among them was evidence that on March 7th, around 9 a.m., Lindsay had conducted a Google search on how to remove bruises, subsequently deleting the search history in an attempt to conceal her actions. At her initial court appearance, Lindsay pleaded not guilty to the charges. Later that same day, she posted bail and was released from custody pending trial. Sending their children to daycare with the hope that their child will be nurtured when they cannot be there themselves. However, the hard cases of child abuse, even leading to fatal outcomes, still exist. As Hannah's condition deteriorated, she passed on March 18th. The case developed into a homicide investigation. Lindsay Parton's trial commenced in April 2019, spanning 8 days of proceedings. Passed on March 18th. Lindsay Parton's scene, spanning 8 days.
6 months before Michaela's abduction, a 7-year-old girl named Amber disappeared in the vicinity. Shortly thereafter, Binder reached out to the girl, offering assistance and regularly visiting her home.
During the trial, footage from Lindsay's interrogations was presented, showcasing her repeated falsehoods to authorities. In response, Lindsay's defense strategy took an unexpected turn. Lindsay claimed that her admission had been coerced by law enforcement. She alleged that detectives pressured her to confess to harming Hannah, that if she didn't, Jason would face prosecution for her daughter's death. Jason couldn't comprehend how could the healthy little girl he had seen just... Lindsay staunchly maintained her initial narrative during the trial, asserting that Hannah had been perfectly healthy upon arrival at her home and nothing untoward had occurred before lapse. Lindsay also adamantly denied ever striking, squarely placing blame on Jason for the injuries sustained by Hannah. Jason took on the role of a single father addiction, ultimately being arrested for selling. Melinda Cook Howard was representing Lindsay for the defense, and it's not entirely surprising to hear who they chose to blame. Melinda argued that Jason was the one who inflicted the injuries on Hannah, saying he was motionless when pictures of her were shown during the testimony. Melinda said it was him forming some sort of alibi. And herself also has 2 older sisters, Rachel and Caitlin, or always appreciates the simple. Despite this tumultuous beginning, Hannah's resilience to a bright young toddler with a real She adored spending time. Interestingly, while Jason readily agreed to undergo a polygraph test, which he subsequently passed, Lindsay adamantly refused to participate. Although the polygraph tests are typically inadmissible in court, Lindsay's refusal raised eyebrows and hinted a sense of guilt. O.H. Jason found action company, so the move was a practical decision. With Jason,
he was emotionless when pictures to sisters, Rachel and beginning. Hannah's spending time with her dad test, which he subsequently, although the results of polygraph.
The jury deliberated for 12 hours before reaching a verdict. Lindsay Parton was ultimately found guilty of murder, receiving a sentence of life imprisonment with a mandatory minimum term of 15 years, along with an additional 36 months for the child endangerment. Lindsay will only become eligible for parole after serving 8 years behind bars, marking the somber conclusion to a tragic chapter in Hannah's story. Lindsay's legal team announced their intention to appeal her conviction. Melinda Cook Howard stated that Lindsay was an upstanding mother and wife and has the support of her community. Lindsay maintained plans to appeal this. Jason was unaware going through some difficulty. She had suffered a miscarriage, and the relationship between her and her husband had some problems. Her family and attorneys say Lindsay maintains her innocence. "We believe that Lindsay is innocent and we will be looking to appeal." Imagine that in this delicate balancing act and visit, prompting questions. He told Jason the baby did it, but in a tumble. At the time, this explanation seemed Hannah was a girl full of energy. She could be prone to occasional falls. He was a parent to Lindsay's house each day, eager for the next day. Jason also reacted to the conviction, expressing his deep anger towards Lindsay for what she did to Hannah. "I hope she never gets out of jail for what she did to my... I hope and pray every single day that you get the same treatment in jail that you showed my daughter." Co-driver with her father, but that day she asked to lie down in the back seat. It was a small struck Jason as out of the ordinary.
Given the kid, he told Jason the babysit so she could be prone to falls. Lindsay was my daughter. I hope the same treatment in jail that you should.
In October 2019, an appeal was filed on Lindsay's behalf. The state filed its response in January 2020 and maintained that Lindsay's own confessions and the various expert witnesses support her. Ringland concurred with the state's position, ruling that they had presented ample evidence to substantiate Lindsay Parton's conviction for the crimes in question. Lindsay has been adjusting to life in prison, striving to keep herself busy. She has assisted 3 preparing summaries and helped them secure their release. Alongside this, she has been doing laundry, tidying up, reading books, and participating in various groups, including music therapy and parenting classes. She said that Hannah had suddenly... Jason made a switch assuring Lindsay that he would arrive as quickly as possible while instructing her to dial 911. Moreover, Lindsay has been aiding inmates in obtaining their high school diplomas and is undergoing training to become a counselor so she can assist her fellow inmates in resolving their issues.
Possible while instructing.
Lindsay told the police yesterday that Hannah wasn't feeling well. This morning, right when Hannah's daughter here. When Jason arrived, Lindsay was still on the phone, trying to wake Hannah up. However, Lindsay still can't stop thinking about going home to her family. She mentioned she needs to leave before her mother passes away from the shock she caused and before her who she is. Lindsay explained that she misses her children to the point of being afraid to go to sleep every night because she knows the dream of being with them, only to wake up disappointed the next morning realizing where she is.
This morning, right when she mentioned that she needs to...
Despite being arrested, Lindsay always maintains her innocence, firmly believing that she has never harmed Hannah and that her love for her is genuine. They were told the devastating news with her family and bed. Injuries raised immediate concerns, the result of a simple accident, as Lindsay and Jason's words. After the death of his daughter Hannah Weshy, Jason Weshy founded the Hannah Strong Foundation in Cincinnati, to help abused or neglected children. Helping and bringing smiles to others makes them feel happy. Jason works hard, juggling responsibilities between work and raising his daughters to be happy, confident, strong, and caring. Her house, she even wanted to collapse.
Hannah's injuries raised immediate Cincinnati to help abuse, helping in his responsibilities between her house.
However, this argument was not valid in modern times, as numerous cases have resulted in convictions without the recovery of the bodies, given substantial evidence. Moreover, David had a history of violent crimes in his life. At 16, he broke into a house and assaulted a woman at knife point. After a year in prison, he was released early and soon attempted her assault on a different woman. After another 2 years, Michaela's father traveled from another state to attend the press conference announcing the arrest of his daughter's kidnapper. Unfortunately, Michaela's mother, who had hoped to find her daughter alive all those years, couldn't attend as she was battling cancer. Shortly after the news of the arrest, she passed away. Police pledged to continue searching for Michaela's remains, $1 reward any valuable information. In David Mitch's trial, the prosecution sought the penalty, but the district attorney changed, and the new one mentioned not to pursue it. If David is found guilty of all 3 murders, he will receive a life sentence, only several decades